African, I know, those people who have African parents were born in America, those people who were, we got to get some black folks involved with this that are luminaries with djembe was my feeling. And being that I'm half black and half white, I can say all kind of thing and get away with it. So I'm just going to say that right out here. All right. So I said, let's get these folks in here, man, because they got stories, they got the depth of the experience in the United States that is just profound, you know, and the names Weedie and Amadou and Atiba came up. At some point, Mahiri's going to have to be in the mix on this kind of thing.
Yeah.
But we're going to do what we can do at the time where we can do it. So I've known all three of you for a long, long time. I think I met Weedie at Famadou's
Famadou
class.
Konate's 2000 in Chicago.
2000. Right, exactly right, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And Amadou, I think I met you when you came up with Farafina Khan with Mamadi in 2003 or 4 to Chicago.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And Atiba, I was wondering when I met you. I can't remember when I met you.
Long, long, long time ago. I don't remember either. We've been in the same spaces with each other
Yeah,
multiple times since the early 2000s, but
it's
I don't
like
know if
that.
we never like really, really connected till
Yeah. So
maybe
there's
like
Matt.
2013 ish.
Right, right. And I've got mad respect for all three of you, and I've been, I consider all three of you koroni, which means big little brother.
Big
So
little brother, yeah.
you all are younger than me, but I consider you all big brothers of mine in regards to the djembe. So I want to say that right out. Um, so the first thing I'd like to ask all three of you is how did you get into djembe? Because a lot of folks are wondering that, and we want to try to save some time at the end for questions from these good people in the chat, or in the chat or out loud. If you had a question and you're thinking of it, put it in the chat so you don't forget about it. All right. But how did y'all get into djembe? What was the thing that brought you into djembe? Who want to start?
Jelly
We
Chad.
Yeah, you should.
You go
Okay.
first?
No, you big bro. You
we
go first.
defer to you first.
Oh, okay.
You don't have to go. You can, but you go. You don't go.
Okay. Okay. Well, hello everyone. My name is Weedie Braimah. I like long walks, but no. Basically, I started. It's funny because my story is really is unique and different. I'm gonna really sum it up really fast. I come from a drumming family on both sides, my mother and my father. You know, being born in Accra, raised in East St. Louis, in the great city of East St. Louis. Um, the first form of drumming that I knew to my heart was folkloric Ghanaian drumming, whether it was Ga, Asante, Northern Dagomba, what else? Ewe drumming. That was the first form of drumming I knew. Djembe was not even a thought in my mind because I came from that whole narrative. And then the jazz drumming and funk and fusion drumming because of my mother and my grandfather and my uncle. My father's a world-renowned composer and Ghanaian drummer. Askasui Braimah, my mother, world-renowned jazz drummer, funk drummer, and Mars. She learned from my father. His name was Nathaniel Weedie Mars, and Nathaniel Weedie Mars taught a young man by the name of Leo Mars that the world knows as Idris Muhammad. So
Hey,
drumming
wait.
comes
You
in.
know that's my
Yes.
daddy name too, Nathaniel.
See, that's why we click. That's why me and
Yeah.
you tight. We click. Nat and Nat. You dig? So my dad had a group in Champagne. So when they brought me to States, my dad and my mom broke up. As you know, all artists families, we get too deep into the music where I'm here because of the drum, not because of love. You dig what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Which is the love of the music. A lot of people
Yep.
don't know the difference. All right. So basically, the time I get to States, I was a very young man. My mother was back and forth from East St. Louis and Champaign, Urbana. And my father was working at the U of I, and there was a club that my dad had a band at called Bantuku. Bantuku was his first fusion. I would call that the African Snarky Puppy or the Return of Forever in the 80s.
Whoa.
And that was my
Wow.
father. Exactly. And my mother was the drummer. My daddy was one drummer, and he had a big band. Beautiful work. But what happened was, once again, my mother and my father broke up. So she brought me back to East St. Louis. By this time, my mother wanted me to still continue and playing African culture because she knew that was my heart. I was gigging at fucking 4 and 5. So
Wow.
in 1988, 89, I met a man by the name of Sylvester Sunshine Lee, who changed my life. And it was him who introduced me to this drum called djembe. So he was my master, but there was a man that changed my life. And that man was by the name, he's one of my big bros. And Atiba can attest to this, was by a man by the name of Fred Struthers, Ibrahim Sila. And that man changed my whole perspective because he was like a godsend. Of course, there was Musa Traore, Abdul Doumbia, Musa Traore, Thadi Kennedy, and the list goes on of people that, Mamadi Keita, he was one of my heroes. But those two people and Abdul Doumbia was the ones that literally changed my whole focus of what I knew djembe to be. Those are my hearts, and I'm forever grateful for those people. You know what I'm saying? I'm forever grateful. That's my fast. There's a whole story about it, but that's my fast intro to djembe. Thanks for that music in the background. That was really nice.
I know, it's like ambiance, right?
Yeah. So since I'm the oldest on the trio, Amadou's next.
Okay.
July
Well, can y'all hear me?
24th. I hear you, July 24th.
All day, Leo,
Mm-hmm.
forever. So my introduction, so in the beginning, my parents had a performing company here, called Memory of African Culture in Washington D.C. My father's from Senegal, and I was born into a jelly family, and my mom is from D.C. She was an artist, and they had met and they formulated this company. But like traditionally, where my family is back in Tamba, I wasn't allowed to play drums. It was just everybody played kora. So my intro and the first drums that I played were kutiro. So I played kutiro for years, just growing up. And then in memory of African culture, I was able to really come up under the tutelage of just some of the I was who in the company. Uh, at first, it was Baba Baile McKnight. You had Baba Ito Holmes. Like you had a lot of the old school cats were there. Baba Andre. Like so, there were people I was watching growing up. But my father always had people coming in and visiting and sharing. Just because at the time, the connections between the national ballets and stuff. My dad had grown up in the ballet. Every time somebody comes here, they come and they stay. With family, which was us. But when I really kind of decided to take the djembe seriously, I remember being rather young, is because my father told my teacher and essentially my big bro, my Harry Fajin Keita, um, to take me under his wing, really. And so my Harry, his family was a part of Memory of African Culture, and at the time he was working with Baba Ito and Wolse and working with uh, Mama Sylvia Suma and a group that would inevitably become Koyaba, but at the time it was Wolse. And I used to basically tag along. I was the runt of the whole crew, like so everybody had me by like a decade and stuff, and I would run around, just learning and teaching and really just just being up under that wing. But and then when I started to develop a little bit of technique, my father had a jazz band called Mama Ya African Jazz, and in Mama Ya African Jazz, I played djembe growing up in Mama Ya African Jazz. So like it was if I guess if Snarky Puppy or Return of Forever is taken over, I guess Mama Ya African Jazz was like the Mahavishnu Orchestra of African jazz at the time,
Man.
right? So,
Wow.
it really because of my African jazz, I had an opportunity to really get exposed to a lot of other kinds of music and really learn how to take the foundation I had with traditional African drumming and djembe into these other art forms, and that was really like what did it for me. Because even growing up, much like Yeah, we were all djembe junkies in a way, but I grew up listening to so many things outside of djembe music. I was listening to, you know, Al Di Meola, listening to Donny Hathaway, listening to Al Green, listening to Bobby McFerrin. So by the time I came to the djembe, all of my experience, Parliament Funkadelic, like, so all of the music that was coming from these other places started to inform the way that I approached the djembe because that was my input. So, really, through Mahiri and what started with Memory of African Culture, going into Dono Percussion Ensemble, was evolved into Farafina. I was just the run of the group. So I spent a lot of years just soaking it in. And like you and Brahman's mentioned, there are a lot of teachers along the way that come through. You develop relationships, but you know, I learned how to play djembe from the robust culture in our communities here in the United States.
So Amadou, I have a question for you, and I'm not sure who in our live audience knows about this, but the cast of the Jali or the griot, the oral historians, they generally don't play djembe. They play usually kora or balafon or nkoni. Am I right?
Yeah. So the way it works is that there's a spiritual pact that you make, like when you're bound to your instruments in jelly culture, right? Now the djembe belongs to the numo, which are like the blacksmith class. Like so, even though you had people who were jelly that over time began to play, even in my youth, it was a little bit taboo to really see people step outside of the technology that was a part of their traditional. I don't want to say caste, but their community systems, right? So even so much so, when I would go back home, even though I loved djembe and was having a good time, I was not allowed to play. Like I've never till this day played djembe in Tamba. Never. If I go there and you tell people that I play djembe, if not for the advent of like the internet and YouTube and all of that stuff, they'd be like, "Man, get out of here. He's jelly. He's not going to do it." And even when I lived in Mali, same thing. I was not allowed to play djembe for the longest.
Yeah,
I don't.
other Jolly Cast folks I know that play djembe did it in secret, right? They sneak out across town and take djembe lessons because they didn't want their family to know and stuff like that. So that's great that you were brought into it in a very above board way. It seems at some point when you were when you were invited to sit with Mahiri, right?
Well, it's because of the family relationships. Like my
Mm.
Harry is literally grew up, from when their family came down to DC, like as a big brother of mine. Like his sisters, his mom, all of the family was inside of our Memory of African Culture, which was my parents' company, and it was rooted in one of the Pan African institutions that are here in DC. So you have these Pan African institutions that are in Washington and really all over the country that were hubs for studying the traditional sciences, particularly the djembe, that were kind of unspoken heard. That were like really out, hidden in plain sight. So you have like several generations of djembe fola coming out of these community institutions that have been there. So by the time I came, djembe wasn't new. People had already been playing. And so it's like, from one hand, I have, the relationship coming from back home, with through my father where people were coming. But as far as djembe is concerned, like I stepped into a very intensive community of djembe practitioners, you know. So like if any of y'all know who Baba Violet McKnight is, like he's like Yoda. Or any of y'all know who the Baba Khalid Saleems of the world, the Baba Ido Holmes of the world, the Baba Neil Clark. So they're so far in this process that it wasn't like we were coming and people were just, learning their notes. No, they're already using this for, just the deeper level stuff that I'm not even sure we could talk about the deeper level stuff on this Zoom call. But just know that there's a veil, and then there's an entire universe of it that happens behind the veil that doesn't happen in your workshop or your dance class or drum circle. So I grew up on the other side of the veil in that respect, like for ceremony. But enough of that. Atiba,
True,
please share with us
true knowledge is secret.
all day.
all of that. Thank you, Amadou. All right. And, if you guys forget something you want to add, or if I got questions already based for Weedie and for you that I'm going to follow up with later. So if you got stuff you want to re-add back in, just, shout it out. Shout it from the mountaintop. It's like that. All right. Mr. Atiba. Hey, look, the mama mosquito needs some food, too. What's the matter with you, man? Oh, you're muted.
You need it.
There we go.
There we go. We on
Okay.
now. Sorry, I'm down here on a farm right now. My family farm, my family's farm. So y'all hear that noise in the background? That's somebody starting up a what he starting? Oh, lawnmower. I thought it might have been a tractor or something. But so that's what's happening. Um, so I guess that's the beginning, right? My family's from North Carolina. Tell me if you can't hear me. I can hold on for a second or try to relocate. But it'll be done in a minute. My mother's from outside of Raleigh, North Carolina, a small town called Garner, and my father's from a farm area in Anson County of North Carolina. The two of them are theater people into live theater, which is what brought them together. And they both also, being from these rural areas, were able to discover African culture before I was born. So, here go my mama. You want to say hey, mom? There's my mama, y'all.
Hey.
Hello, everybody.
Hey,
Oh,
hey, hey.
hi. I know most of you. I know most of you. Nice
Hey.
shirt over there in the corner.
Right. Talk about you,
Wow. Hi, Mom.
Well, look at him. Look at all him.
You're right. And you know exactly what you're talking about. So, right.
Okay, I came to see how the conversation was going, so I'm gonna get out the picture so I can.
Nice to
You
meet
are
you.
the picture.
Right.
Good
Right.
to see you guys. I guess you told them what we've been doing today, huh?
No, we ain't got there yet,
Okay, good.
but we will.
Hey.
But so yeah, that's my mama. I learned about African music and culture while I was in her stomach. I was born in
Yo.
Philadelphia, right? I was born in Philadelphia, but my mother being an artist, my father being an artist, I was surrounded by artists. My mom is also in the arts management, so I was able to be around people in a different way as well, right? My mom worked for National Endowment for the Arts for a long time when I lived in Washington D.C. My family is close with Amadou's family. Um, you know what I'm saying? It's a small world. So needless to say, I got into it by way of my parents. My dad is a drummer. My dad was in marching band and stuff, and of course he liked African drums. My father ends up working with Babatunde Olatunji. Babatunde Olatunji is actually my godfather. He's the person who named me. He gave me my name. So when I was a baby, I was hanging with him and his company every day, right? So what that meant looked like for me was I'm hanging out with this guy. I didn't know that he was the entity of, you know what I mean? Like he's a regular dude, and Aki Wo was my favorite song ever in the world. That's all I know.
Mhm.
But hanging with him and the people that are a part of his company, I was able to pick up things, learn things, and then I moved to the South when I was like 9, and then I started studying with Bradley Simmons, as well as Fahali Ebo, Ibrahim Sila, Fred Strothers, who lives down the road here actually, about 20 minutes, um, and that's pretty much how I got into it. I'm very similar in a way to my other brothers that djembe wasn't first in my life. I didn't start with djembe, right? I didn't even like my first drum was actually a drum from Belize. It's a Garifuna drum. My very first drum
Mm.
was a drum from Belize that was made for me. Um, and in playing, if you know Olatunji's music, his thing was mixing a lot. He made gumbo out of things. So
Mhm.
meeting this person, that person. I was learning from each one of these people. But the thing is that for example, I got a chance to see tour with Olatunji when I was younger, and Madu Dembele and Fode Sissoko were playing djembe with him at the time together. And this was when Fode was really playing before he started mostly playing kora, which was for me as like 12 years old. I'm like, oh my god, this is when Madu was on fire. Like
Hey, Bob, what year is it? What year is this around?
I don't know. I'm 36. So I was like 12 then.
94, 95.
Yeah.
Huh.
So it's right before my first, yeah, right before I went to Ghana.
94, 95. I remember that year because I actually did a show in St. Louis with them. 94, 95. Actually, a show actually Springfield, St. Louis, and Indianapolis. Yeah. And that was 94, 95. That's exactly. That's
Yeah.
when 40
James
Sissoko would play
Cherry was
Cora
on
and
there with
Djembe. And James Cherry, yes, sir.
James
Mhm.
Cherry, who's one of the best repair people ever in the history of fixing the drum in the world.
Oh
Ever,
yeah.
ever, ever. Like him, Baba Baile, scientists, like
Hmm.
craftsmen. The
Like
way
these.
all our drums look now is because of these people.
Yeah,
And
they had a secret. Well, I don't want to say secret. They had
They
a
did.
guild back then that was, you know,
yeah,
inter, U.S. like Bob was going back and forth, exchanging information, developing the systems that inevitably would be
And,
commodified and
right.
and
exploited.
to be honest, historically speaking, there was a festival called Festac in 1976 in Nigeria.
Uh-huh.
64, 65.
60,
That's what
64
it was. It was
Festman,
64 and 65.
64 and 65. Festman was in Dakar in 64, and Festac was in Nigeria in 75. Now, there was something unique happened because there were three groups from the United States. Well, two main groups, International and then Muntu Dance Theater. Now, what was unique about that, there was a Baba by the name of Moshe Milan. Moshe Milan he's from Chicago, lives in Oakland. And to piggyback off of what Atiba said, what makes this so unique about these drummers and these drum physicians, as I would say, Moshe was the first person to introduce Famadou Konate to this technique that you see today.
In
That
terms of
happened
Papa from
in
New York.
Niger,
No, that happened in Nigeria,
Nigeria. Okay.
as
Yeah.
in
So they were
Nigeria,
they were both there performing. Famadou told me the story. He says,
along with Mamadi Keita.
yeah, he says, I see this drum called djembe, and it looks like the drum that's from where I'm from, but it doesn't look like the drum that's from where I'm from. Right? So what had happened is that in the African American community, um, so before when the drums weren't put together with rope and rings the way they are now, they were tacked on,
That
they were
mm-hmm.
pegged, or they were sewn. And someone by the name of Chief Hawthorne Bay, who was actually from South Carolina, but he moved to New York and he started drumming. He was an ashiko player and a conga player, but he looked at the djembe and said, okay, because you couldn't hit the djembe in the middle. If you hit a djembe flat in the middle, like how you play a bass now, it would go
go
flat.
down.
The sound would go away. And so he was like, okay, I can figure out how to mount this, put this together in a way that you can tune it and not have to heat it up on a fire and lose the sound. Therefore, Chief Bay created this no-hole system that got passed around the African American community, and these dance companies went and performed at these events where there were companies from Africa there, and people from Africa and people from America. Basically, the mirror just got a chance to see each other. You know what I
Hmm.
Hmm.
mean? Like it's like
Nice.
looking in the mirror. And then Famadou was like, "Oh my god!" And Famadou told me he's like, "I took the drum home. Moshe gave him a drum. I took it home.
Mm-hmm.
It took me about a year to figure out how they did it. They had this one drum, and it took him about a year to figure out how the system worked. So, yeah,
Let's
pretty
be
He was
clear.
impressed.
That's the ring system that everybody uses as the standard today. You
now.
know, like right now. So when you have your
Even the
rings and your
concept of
rope.
how to round the edges on drums, what the
Hmm.
inside should actually look like, all of that came from the African American community.
Right. So,
which is very unique, which is very unique too, to talk about the playing. I remember a lot of people talked about this. There was a djembe Folo who passed away. His name is Balogun Love. Balogun Love has a son by the name of Ade Love, which I think, Taylor, you know Ade, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
was in Guinea with Ade, okay? Well, Ade's father was what they would call in those days a djembe magician. He knew the drum so well that even in Africa, they had to keep looking at him like he's made big man, but he's not. He's African, but it was messing people up. I mean, I remember seeing Baba. I remember seeing Mama Keita do an interview on. I think Monet was translated for him and did an interview about him seeing these drums before the first time at a festival, and he thought, well, they don't sound like they're from Africa, but they're African. I think they're from Sierra Leone, which is not correct. Not correct at all. The truth about it is that's what Famadou would say out of his mouth. These people were from Chicago, New York. Chicago, New York. Because he stutters like Chicago, New York.
He stuttered when he speaks English. He do.
Chicago, New York. He says, yeah. And he says he has his main thing was there was another gentleman that was very prominent in this that we must give praise to. Two people, Harry Belafonte,
Yes.
and for the jazz scene, a musician by the name of Famadou Don Moye. Don Moye for the art ensemble, Chicago Art Ensemble, had this jazz group, and he got his name from connecting with Famadou, going to Guinea, doing a festival in Conakry. Says Sekou, that's right, Famadou Don Moye, which some people call him Don Moye. Famadou Don Moye, he got that name because of his friendship and his connection to fucking Famadou. Excuse my language. But the thing is that initiation, what initiated a new sound that we're trying to do now, that they had already started. That they already started with integrating jazz with folkloric music. From that group, they have the Chicago Percussion Ensemble, Percussion Summit, which was Meshack Silas, Clifton, Babu Atiba, Sila,
Chicago.
Enoch.
This is Chicago, baby. Those are my babas on the south side.
All of that. But they was the ones that was connecting dots on the Europe tip on the jazz scene, integrating jazz music, and because the word percussionist is so to me vague. That's why I like to be very clear when you say certain things. But that's Festa opened up a door for a lot of things for what happens in America. First in 1964, we're dealing with the Fesman in Senegal, where Pearl Primus, Catherine During, Harry Belafonte, the poet, what's my poet? Mocham came because Catherine Dunham saw all of them had a boat ride, and they saw Mocham playing on a boat. He wasn't even a part of the festival.
Wow.
Yep. He saw Mocham playing on a boat. What? That they was having a boat cruise.
If you've ever, anybody listen, if you ever heard of this artist named Akon, who's a very famous artist.
Oh yeah, that's
Akon's father.
Yeah.
Father.
Yep.
Mocham.
Aliun Cham.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, but the sister say all this to say that it's a very unique journey from where we are now because of these situations from 1964. Because you got to realize this drum has only been in this country for the past 50 years, 60 years. Now we're looking at 60 years, 60, maybe 65 years in America. Not to say that African music wasn't here.
I'm about to say, there was definitely a culture of people playing, African music here. That by the time the djembe is introduced into the communities of people who utilize it, there was already a foundation established there. So you end up dealing with, even from the lexicon of djembe language, this infusion of the African American influence into the djembe lexicon. But that doesn't just start there. Like, it's been so influential. There's a lot of things that can be attributed to the African American influences, like from the breakdowns to the breaks to the punches to like the influences of
James Brown,
on
Baylage drummer.
Mm-hmm. That means if you're talking about James Brown, then you're talking about Mr. Stubblefield,
and J-Bo Starks.
Yeah.
Right. So this being foundational in djembe music moving forward, that isn't necessarily a part of the dominant narrative now, but it's like you take that away, and it's suffice to believe the popularity of the djembe doesn't reach the way it does. You know, so I don't know. I just feel like that's an important thing to kind of touch on because as we're talking about the construction of the drum, we also have to acknowledge that there's always been a cultural exchange in terms of the development of the language around the drum, the development of the pedagogy around the drum. You know what I'm saying? So I know a lot of times people just look for the most ancient bushy thing that they could find. They want to find some master in the mangrove, but odds are, somewhere in the city is somebody who's very instrumental in the development of it. Because some of the Bibles were right up under Chief Bay, they're alive and well. They're right here. Some of the Taylor was just alluding that some of these very people are in Chicago right now.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So
Baba Atu is still here.
Almost everybody we named so far is still close.
It's still here.
95.
Baba Atu is still here.
Mm-hmm. So,
and I'm gonna say that again. Baba Atu is still here. That's something to really think about.
What's Baba Atu's full name?
What is Atu's full name?
Yeah, that's all I know is Baba Atu.
That's all from the Sun Drummers.
Yeah, I mean it ain't hard. How many people name Atu?
Yeah,
one. Now.
That was carving drums in Chicago in the 40s and 50s.
This is something really interesting. So people on here, I'm pretty sure y'all have seen the thing. I'm not gonna say new because this is gonna trip you out. Where people are now using like conga hardware on djembes. I'm not talking about LP. I'm talking about like actual hardwood shells from Africa that are carved and people are now mounting. Mm-hmm. Know that was happening in the 70s.
Oh, yeah.
That was happening in the 70s. Monty Ellison did that in the 70s because he was on tour with Broadway and needed a way to say, okay, if my drum breaks, I don't have the time to fix it. So I'm going to fix mine like the drum set player does so that I can change my skins more easily. That, as well as people were making djembes back at this time because there weren't drums.
Right.
Like people were taking congas and cutting them in half, flipping them on top of each other, making their own djembes. Or there was someone making stave djembes in the 70s as well.
Wow.
Because there weren't enough drums here. That's what Festac was. Festac was so powerful. The one that happened in New York was so powerful because there was a Guinea pavilion and there was someone who was a drummer. His sister worked at the pavilion, and there was a crate of drums that they literally were going to burn.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, because they didn't know
at the World's Fair.
At the World, that's where that Festac, the World's Fair in 64, 65. At the World's Fair, they were going to burn a whole crate of drums, whole crate of djembes. Nobody in America really had drums. Nobody was playing here. Laji Kamara was here at that time, but there weren't djembes here, right? For people to play. And then this person, his sister got them to open up the crate, and then people came in droves and were buying the drums. Back then, I think they were like $50, $60, which was kind of a bit much in the 65, right? Like,
but again, it was based on that relationship that had already been established. Because the idea was that we rather destroy them than this technology fall in the wrong hands of, because essentially the perspective of the djembe even at that time is connected to the traditional technology or this idea that like, this is more than just an instrument. This is a key. This is a tool. So it's like, the idea that you have to be responsible for how the tools are being used as opposed to them being abused, rather. So it's like, because of the pre-existing relationship that happened there at the World's Fair, they choose not to destroy these instruments, and then it's interesting because you can see kind of like the traces of where these djembes in the crate end up and start establishing communities of people who are practicing and playing and even building, because in fact, the drum builders that I was telling you about back in the 70s, like they were modeling after some of these drums that had come from the crate. They were going into Rock Creek Park and cutting the trees down and building them themselves from there. So you got djembes that have been around here. Like, I don't know any of the original drums where they are right now, but a lot that were modeled after that are still floating.
I'm asking Robert Bradley. I'm sure he knows where at least 1, 2 of them are.
Yeah.
There's you got to realize too, 64, '67, you had Chime in East St. Louis, you had Logi in New York. I know 3 drums that are still alive from that surface.
From the
Because
era.
more Chime had brought, like from that era, yeah, he brought about 7 drums, right? 7, 8 djembes. And at that time, he was selling them for a ridiculous price, $300.
Man. Hey, did I spell Morecham's name right in the chat?
Yeah, that's
Yep.
it. Cham.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just making sure. Hey, now y'all mentioned Harry Belafonte and his relationship to things. What I know, when I learned surprisingly, was that he had a lot to do with the advent of ballet Joliba.
Not a lot.
And
Everything.
Yeah.
he had
Everything.
I heard he brought the idea to Sekou Touré.
It's
He went
why
there.
though.
He went to Guinea to put the company together.
And there were a
Right.
lot of people involved, like Harry Belafonte being primary. They talk about consultation from, even talking to George Balanchine at the time, the Balanchine technique in ballet. Like, I want
One
to
more
say that
person. What's the poet name? Um,
Oh,
um,
right.
Maya
he-
Angelou.
um,
No,
no, male poet.
he's uh, James.
We gotta
No,
say it.
Baldwin.
James Baldwin.
right. Thank
James
you. There you
Baldwin.
go, James
Oh,
Baldwin.
James
Right.
Baldwin. James Baldwin. That's why I did my hand like this. Like,
right. You had the cigarette pose.
Right.
yeah, James Baldwin. James Baldwin. Absolutely.
I want to say this because it's necessary. The formulation of those ballets is a very intentional strategy to reclaiming the narrative of how African culture is presented in the world. And if you think about who's involved with this, you're talking about artists, you're talking about government entities that are literally coming together to push back on the fact that most of the information about the continent of Africa during the period of the African liberation movements, simultaneously the Pan African movements happening here, simultaneously Negritude movement. All of these things are happening because they want to be able to uh, push back against the pre-existing narratives of African culture in the world, which have been mostly informed by Tarzan. Yeah, keep in mind, look at the time. So most people don't really. The only thing they know about Africa, this is like, and we'll tell you, we grew up in the African booty scratcher era where you show up playing African drum, or you go to school with your dashiki, or you show up somewhere and upholding your African culture, and there's a lot of resistance. So like they were doing this 20, 30 years before any of us were even on the face of the planet. But this was already strategy. This was already a part of like entities organizing to say it wasn't drumming because celebration dance. No, they strategically went to communities, got people who were practitioners of these arts from their villages, brought them in, and we developed a way to present it on the proscenium. That is some. That is not having a good time. That's not just people just happy to be there. And it's important to look at that when we look at, just how is it that we're approaching our enthusiasm or our interest in this craft, right? Because at that point, anybody who's an enthusiast of a particular whatever discipline, because they're all disciplines, there is the burden to learn and understand the foundation of that discipline in order to have a certain understanding of how to move in your own learning process, right? So if I go and I want to learn, about violins, like something like that, like there's not a person who plays violin that doesn't know Stradivarius or something like that. You know what I mean? And he's just a builder, right?
Right.
But but you're gonna learn about the Baroque period. You're gonna learn about classical music. You're gonna learn about this. What you're not gonna do is get a bunch of violins together, go to the park, and start playing all sorts of whatever the fuck. You know what I mean? Which is like, not to insult people that do that, but I do think that there is a certain it behooves people to have a foundational understanding of the technology that they're engaging, right? Because we haven't even touched on, what is the djembe? What is it created for? What does it do? And how these properties work to affect the physical or spiritual world around us, right? It's like,
Yeah. Why don't you? Can you say something about the origin of the djembe as you understand it? Either of you three?
It's called a bongo.
I will reach through this camera and smack you, Weedie Braimah.
Well,
But see, that's the problem. Look,
if
let
you
me say
look at
this.
on YouTube, look at Weedie got this guy explained it to Weedie one time real good, right? He said it's this
Yeah.
two-headed drum with wildebeest skin on it.
And yeah,
And
it's from India.
Yo,
People,
no,
don't
this is what
listen to these
somebody
men.
said. This is
Oh,
what
this is
somebody
a true story. No, this is
true
a true
story.
story.
Oh
This is
yes,
a true story.
This is true.
This is documented
This is
No.
on
somebody
YouTube
said
and
this
on.
to Weedie Braimah.
he's walking to him and he's telling him that it has wildebeest skin on it, and then
Oh
it's played with some sort of mallet situation. I forget how, and he was
I
on.
think he was on the vibe.
Is
How
this?
does that?
Are you saying this is a video that exists right now?
Yes.
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 I seen another video sanctioned by a very reputable arts institution that said the djembes were played for sending messages from the king on the backs of elephants. You know,
Woo! I saw something from like the Smithsonian that said something like that. I mean, credible arts institutions like what look, due diligence is not a thing that's reserved for everything except djembe.
right?
You know, due diligence means you just at least look into it with credible sources, just like you would with anything else. You know, I
Right.
think that's not too much to ask for. You know,
Obviously,
It's not.
but now all fictional stories aside, help these people know something about the origins of the djembe, please.
okay.
Oh, we all do a piece. We all do a piece.
Weedie, 'cause
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about the folkloric origin, but you could talk about the name and everything and all of that stuff. Like,
Well, to really to a science of it, we have to look at what people should automatically know what it is, what Ankaje Ankabe is, what Mandang is, what the goblet of the shape is, what Mumu is, what the real identity of a Jimbe Fola's job is. Those we'll use those. We'll use those, and then I'll do one, pass it around. Basically, Ankaje Ankabe is the true voice of what it represents. Emaninkakan Emandeng Ankaje Ankabe means everyone come together in unity and peace. Everyone come together in unity. Ankaje Ankabe. When I heard the story of Ankaje Ankabe, it really tripped me out because you're going from a title to what we call djembe. Djembe bara, djembe, Ankaje Ankabe, depending on your area. Like in Amadou's area, djembe bara is that's what they're considered there. You start moving to certain areas where they just say djembe, then when you hear Ankaje Ankabe, they was using the term of the instrument itself to what we now know throughout the years as djembe.
Hey, Weedie,
Now,
Anka J, Anka Bay, what language? Is that Bambara?
Manding, Bambara, Manding. You got to realize too, under the umbrella of all that shit, Manding. The moment you leave, because we got to realize, colonization is a real thing. We all agree. But once you move out of areas, the same way I speak to you in Gambia is the same way I can speak to you in Guinea-Bissau. It's the same way I can speak to you in Segu or in Kai or in Nurusuba or in even Balandugu. You know, it's the inflections and the dialect changes just a hair. A hair.
all the Mandinka, like, there's root language. Like, so sometimes you could look at Bamana as being a root, almost relative to how Latin is a root language of like English or Spanish or right. But the idea is that all Mandinka can, the connectivity is first of all it's concept driven too. It's just not phonetics, right? So when we're talking about djembe bara, when you're talking about ankaje ankabe, like if you're growing up in a community where conceptualization is consistent, then even if the dialect shifts, you're still aware of the foundational understanding of what's going on.
Ooh.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I think sometimes we take for granted the fact English is a very phonetically driven language, right? Like things, you know, they develop concepts, but the fact is, you know, most of our language that we use is based on, you know, phrasing coming together, and then we give it we assign a value to it. Versus like in Mandinka, you know, the value is assigned, and then the phrases will vary from there. You know,
You know,
so when
I've
somebody sing djembe,
okay.
what you say?
I've heard Anka J Anka Bay for a long time, and then when I went to Guinea, I asked about that, and no one seemed to know it. And like Mamadi didn't know that, Bolokada didn't know that word. They said it maybe it's Bambara. So I've got a little confusion on it. I know that Abdul
Here's
Dumbia has it
now.
in his book, you know,
Now we
and
going somewhere.
I asked Musa
Now we going somewhere.
Traore, and he was like had some thoughts on it, but it was less clear than I was hoping it would. It sounds great. Everybody come together in harmony. Yeah, I'm with that. But it was less. I didn't think that. I was surprised when not everyone was like, "Oh yeah, that's it."
You got to
I think
realize
a lot
too.
of that comes from. I think some of that I can speak to that. Some of that comes from one. We're talking about like a distance between people. A right in the sense of where Abdul come from is different than where Mamadi comes from. Location, geographically speaking, right, as well as how the drum itself is manifested and used there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, uh, Susu people have an instrument that's shaped exactly the same as djembe. They call it sangbain. You go to Liberia, they have a drum that's shaped the exact same way as djembe. They call it sangpa. All played in the same way, all with three basic sounds: bass, tone, and slap. Right? So, and the origin stories on those you'll hear will somewhat be different. I think a lot of it is this information is passed orally, and also what as well happens is that unfortunately many times we hear the stories of someone else, right? We're hearing the stories second, third hand sometimes. We're getting things right because depending on who you ask, where they're from, where did they spend their time, where did they actually study. So having a conversation about traditional Malinke music with a Malinke person that's born and raised in Conakry is going to be different than having a conversation with somebody about Malinke music that was born in Kurusa. That was going to be different than having a conversation with Mamadi Keita who's from Balandugu.
Yep.
The way that they play it is different. Also, the linguistic differences you can see there too. For example, the word for water is G or Gi.
GYI
Mm-hmm.
usually see that spelled.
The DJI.
DJI.
Or
DJI.
right now so even that right the DJ is a French thing, right? But for example, Famadou, if you catch him in the right moment when he's really feeling village, he don't say J, he says G, he says Gimbe. Bolokara does the same, Gimbe, right? You move further up, they say J, Jimbe. You know what I
Like when you say
mean?
further up, you mean further northeast?
Yeah, no,
Going
I
towards
know.
Bandu.
Yeah.
Mamadi says G for water, G, not Gi.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So like
Mm-hmm.
you can see how those small differences that just travel as well as what accompanies them. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yep.
And if
As
you
well as
He's absolutely right.
or
accompanies them.
like as you start to, you got to look at the
Yeah.
ethnic group lens too, because it's not like people living in isolation; they're living in tandem with other ethnic groups, and not just language influences, but so does like practice and ritual and all those other things, right?
Right.
So you
Right.
Amadou,
mm-hmm.
question for you.
And let me just say this right quick. I also want to add the other thing is where the information is coming from, right?
Bro, I was about to.
Dumbia, you understand that like these clans of people then because
Exactly,
each
from
one of these
Fakoli.
people had a job.
Right.
Really want to know the history of djembe, you got to talk to the people who made it. You got to ask the blacksmiths,
Yep,
not
good
just the
move.
djembe
Dumbia
player, because now
Dumbia is
everybody
Numu.
plays djembe.
Right.
Because
And
you
now
another
and,
thing,
the djembe. But if you want to understand the origins of djembe, you either have to talk to an older djembe player that's going to tell you the truth, or you got to go find a blacksmith that can tell you about how things came to be, because they were the ones who crafted these instruments.
now you're talking Numuge.
and people's people's point of entry is a big thing too. Like, let's be honest, if your point of entry is through it being a part of your traditional vocation, then your understanding is going to be different than if your point of entry is through the ballet, right? If your point of entry is through, I grew up, this was in my town, but it wasn't necessarily in my house. You know what I mean? So you can look at any of the, you know, and that is consistent with all of the different, cast groups. Like, there are things that about the Jellia that if you're not Jelly, you're never gonna know. Things about the Oro, if you're not Oro, you're never gonna know. If you're not Doso, you're never gonna know. If you're not Numo, you're never gonna know. And then there's like the consensus information, but just based on how the society is groomed, you know what I'm saying? You have just because something can be used in different parts of the society doesn't mean that access to the information is all the same. Like, we all are using a computer right now. Not everybody on the Zoom call can build a Mac or a Microsoft, right? But the idea is that when you want to understand something at its fractal level, you got to go to its sources, or at least people who've studied it from that perspective, right? So, and that's something to contend with, that you have people who are incredible musicians, but it doesn't necessarily, musicianship is not all there is to the djembe fola. Just like musicianship is not all there is to the jelly. There's a whole nother
Namu.
part of the responsibility that has nothing to do with playing and entertaining the people in front of them. That is so
and
secondary.
and that's where you get to now you jumping into the spiritual aspect, and then the idea of on a lateral level of what a musician is.
Mhm.
A true musician
Versus just an entertainer.
is just versus the
Exactly.
entertainer,
Yep.
versus a person that's versus a percussionist, versus, you see, because now we get into what's happening now in the year 2020. You know what I'm saying? 2020. Damn, that's right. You're 2021. Sorry.
Don't take me back to that one.
Don't take. I'm sorry. I'm on the East Coast. I was
Hey.
at a long night recording
Don't
session.
you put that
Sorry.
on me, Bobby.
Don't you put that on me, Weedie Braimah.
Don't do that. But yeah, in 2020, we ain't going backwards. No, that's after this year. No God. But in 2021, we got to realize that we have people who are taking the instrument, and now when I mean the instrument, we're talking about djembe, and being able to have a new narrative with the instrument. But the dangerous part is, with that narrative, they still have no understanding of foundation. They don't. There's a handful of people. And I got to say this before we move on. I am really starstruck right now. And I said I was going to say this. I'm going to say it. Kalani, I am a huge fan of yours. I am
Thank
the
you.
hugest. No, I am the hugest
Yeah, Kalani, you don't know the conversations we had.
I'm going to tell you this, of Yanni, because my dream job, and I wanted that job. I wanted it. But then one day I saw you and I said, oh my God, it was maybe a NAM or someplace. And I thought the sun had hit when you walked in. I said, oh.
Really?
If you think we're joking,
No, man.
me and these these other two young
We
men,
love Yanni.
we
Yanni.
love, first of all, I'm
Yanni,
heavy
we
into
said what up.
composition. I'm heavy into composition, very heavy in composition. So the way you guys are using and scoping that's the thing we're talking about with the folkloric interest, integrating with this new world. But to understand that the narrative is changing, but the foundation must stay the same. But with that foundation staying the same and that narrative changing, we did have to find a way to, how do we present this to the children in these areas who may not never go and be able to understand this, but to know that they're connected with this, and to the people who are not necessarily directly linked in their DNA of how this is supposed to be brought to the masses and respected on both ends, and
Right.
not being musically segregated. And we're talking about drums now. We're not talking about skin color. We're talking about segregation between drums. Because as a percussionist and as a drummer, we do know the mentality of the kit drummer and the hand drummer. Percussionist is segregated. So now the idea of desegregating the drum is happening because the information and the narrative that is changing between the djembe fola being able to speak and have a conversation with the musicians in that ensemble, that no longer is the guy in the back, but the musician that's either leading the music or that's conducting the music or that's starting to compose compositions that is starting to introduce this narrative into this modern society and this modern way of life, how we look at music. So, Kalani, God bless you. I'm done.
Thank you.
Hey, so so I'd like to just kind of recap a lot of what we just said. In my learning, I know that I learned a lot of different things from a lot of different people. And like Mamadi said to Mahiri early in his studies with him, you have to have all your little different sacks. You have to have your information you got from Bolo. You got your information you got from Musa Traore. You got your information you got from Abdul Doumbia. You got the information you got from Famadou Konate. And, you know, we're not them. We're students. So you got to honor all of what the credible Babas have to offer, you know. And it's not the case that if one says something and the other says something else, it's not the case that they're in contradiction. One of my biggest lessons in learning African, culture through the djembe was this idea of mutual, I call it mutual inclusivity. In the West, we use the word or, mutually exclusive. It's this or that. It's this to the exclusion of this other thing. What I find I was learning, in djembe, is say, well, is it this or that? And they'll say yes. I say, okay, maybe you didn't understand me. It's a language thing. Is it this or that? They say, no, yes, it's both. What do you mean it's both? And that messed with my head for a minute. But just put them all as true, and then go forward like that. It's just be able to cite your information if you're studying djembe. Don't learn from your cousin's boyfriend's whatever, and you don't know nothing. You know what I mean? Learn from good. This is just normal data collection in a good way as an academic.
There's a thing culturally too between people's desire to acquire data and their desire to acquire knowledge, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I say, because I completely agree with you, Taylor, in the fact that in order for you to even be in the position of having the conversations and making those delineations, if you will, or putting them in their appropriate places, you have to build relationships with people.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So when you build the relationship with the person, so now like this rhythm isn't just you going to studying somebody's thing, and like when you sit down and you break bread and you eat and you meet family and you find those commonalities in the human experience, then you realize there are always going to be variants and stuff, but the things that are consistent is the necessity to articulate the human experience, right? So if you understand the concept of a rites of passage relative to what it means to a person, then you're going to see the different variants or the different linguistic things but if they're still dealing with the notion of this rites of passage, right, then you can have a frame of reference, right?
Yeah.
I mean, just even from, we were talking about regions, from Balandugu to, Bundunjana or Tamba, like, you might see the same, thing created around these different points in a person's life process, right? You're going to see marriage, you're going to see funerals, you're going to see rites of passage, right? So if you can conceptualize the idea based on the relationships with people sometimes versus, this idea that like data has to be, ones and zeros and precise in a sense. And I know you understand this because you've been drumming for years and years, so you know the nuances of dealing with that. But like I always think of it like food, right? You go to one part of the world, they're gonna call it super kanja. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You go to another part of the world, they're gonna call it, okra stew. You go to another part, they call it gumbo, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Now there are gonna be certain things that are unique to the experience based on the environment, right? You might not be able to get the roux here, you might not be able to get the netatu here, right? But this idea that there's something in the human experience that's being shifted and translated through relationships that requires the manifestation of these particular aspects of culture, right? So it's like you understand you contextualize from the aspect of culture first, but you can't do without a relationship. Because
Right.
if you know, there are plenty of people, they throw thousands and thousands of dollars at people expecting to learn this shit and they never get it.
Oh,
Why? Because it's got, you know what I'm saying? Like,
no relationship.
right, no relationship. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? And when you build that, you then in turn, I can speak for myself, but I'm pretty sure that, this is consistent for Weedie and Atiba. You end up learning more away from the drum than you do in front of the drum
Oh
when,
yeah.
when you build these relationships. So
Breaking
it's like,
bread with the Babas is where you really learn the deeper stuff.
hmm breaking bread is where it's at, you know.
Yeah.
So it ends up being this thing. Like sometimes you see people get into these trivial debates about, well, you know, that variation from
Yeah.
Sigety and this variation from Conakry is blah, all of that bullshit, right? You know what I'm saying? But a lot of times it's just people protecting what little they know, right? Because they don't understand, they can't contextualize it outside of this,
Right.
we're qualifying it based on these ones and zeros, right? Because truth of the matter is, much of this stuff there's a whole another aspect of the djembe world that's been created because people have this like insatiable desire to acquire data. Like,
Hmm.
you know what I'm saying? Like if
Oh
you're
yeah.
in a village and there's only two steps for a dance and it's been that way for 400 years, you know, we're
Right.
only times like when people are coming and they come and they see the two steps. They don't learn the two steps. I want to make that clear. They don't learn it. They see it, and then there's this desire that I want to get this next thing. I want to get this. I just want to record this. I want to hold on to this, right? But they haven't internalized it because they haven't made the connection that okay, this step is connected to all of these other things that come from the relationship.
Right.
So what ends up happening for a lot of djembe players is this full circle, right? There's this, okay, I want data, but there's not really this connect between your application and the information you're getting. Because shit, how many people have, 10 drums and, a terabyte of rhythms and can't play a slap tone and bass, right?
Hey, a lot of breath but no depth.
Yeah.
Well, okay, let's just break it down. This is
Yep.
it's a business.
Yeah.
There's that.
Before we even start talking about what babas and drumming, this is a business.
True.
And yeah, you named all the babas tailored that I learned your bags, but even with them, they're their business because guess what? They're from a village. Before we even talk about classes and state, they're from a village. And no one can say if I studied from my teacher in this village, I'm talking about what I studied from in this. Look at the science in this village. That means this man, he ate, poo-pooed, cooked, and did everything in this village with this way. Once
Yep.
that crosses that Mason-Dixon line, that ocean, it is starting to become a business. No one wants to say that. We want to
Well,
talk about integrity.
you got to package it. You got to do
You
things
got,
to it.
and that's great, But at the end of the day, when you're studying this folklore, study it from a place of I'm trying to learn what and who this is through my lens of how I want to be. Do I want to follow my teacher's footsteps, or do I want to follow multiple people's footsteps? Because now people want to learn drums. Because like you all said, we're in the day of data. Data is important. And so now everybody wants to get all this. What Baba taught us this, so and so taught us this, and we have all. But this doesn't mess up with this. When we realize that we're learning from a person, who's either studied a style of music from their village, or went and studied a style of music in another country and has adapted a way that they've created that sound to bring it to another world.
Yep.
It's no longer talking about folkloric music. Then we go into the world of what I'm talking about now, the
Right.
musician side, the creativity, because we have to realize, hey, I know I have a fan base and people watching what I'm doing. But folks going to use my words and be like, well, Weedie said it went like this. Well, Weedie's not Malinke. Well, Weedie's not this. But at the same time, the words of what you learn from your teachers are fascia. Our voices are valid. It's gonna.
Hey,
Right.
I'd like to get some. And Weedie, that's fucking. Well, I'm sorry. That's gold. What you're saying right there. Absolutely. Now I want to get to a couple things. Questions I've had come across the thing about, and maybe this is maybe for Atiba, maybe for everybody. The system that Baba Tunji Olatunji is associated with, the Gundun Godo Pa Ta, that whole thing. Now, some people think that that's an African thing. Now, it might be the case that Baba Tundi invented it while he was here. What do you know?
So I'll start from the beginning, and I'll start with we
Let
all
me
love
name.
we are right from the Beninging. We all love Michael Babatunde Olatunji. The fact is, he's not a drummer. He was not a drummer. He came to America to be a politician. He's very smart. He was educated at Morehouse.
Ambassador, right?
Yeah, he wanted to be an ambassador. That's what he came here to do. What happened is he saw some African Americans playing the music from his homeland and was like, oh my God, y'all sound just like back home. I know the songs. I can sing pretty good. How about you, Taiwo Duvall, go and find some other people and we'll put a little group together and get a thing going. Taiwo Duvall goes and gets Baba Femi, Chief Bay, I think it's Pablo Landrum, Ralph Dorsey,
Montego Joe.
Montego Joe.
Antigo Joe. All of these people are on the album Drums of Passion. So what happens is when you're around, and now what understand that like these musicians were like, I'm trying to think of a description. Imagine it. You know what? The best example I have is there's a record, a jazz album called The Quintet, live jazz live at Massey Hall, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. You know what I'm talking about? Which at
Yeah.
that time was the baddest cats in the jazz world, who are all friends getting together on stage to play and push each other. You know what I'm saying? Like this one of the most classic recordings of Salt and Peanuts you'll ever hear. If you like that song, go listen to that record. Right? So this was like Salt and Peanuts, Salt and Peanuts. So so this was like the all-star team of people that played this kind of music in America. And they were backing Olatunji. Actually, I would even say pushing in a sense, right? They were the drummers. But they didn't speak the language. They didn't necessarily know the songs. At that time, they were primarily learning from sharing with each other and who could get this record and listen to these records and catch this off this record. You know what I mean? That was a lot of the way that they learned.
Hey, is that link that I put from Wikipedia? Is that the one you're talking about?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's a Massey Hall.
Yes.
Okay.
Wait,
Okay.
no.
No, that's not it.
No. It's called The Quintet is the name of the album. It's
Yo,
The Quintet live at Massey Hall, I think it is.
oh yeah, this is it. I'm looking at the.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know how to go back to the thing. Oh, there it is. So yeah, so the Gundun Godo Pata methodology is something that he picked up and he also evolved in the fact that he was the front man of this ensemble, so everybody saw him. So they called him to come do a drum class. You know what I'm saying? But what made Olatunji who he is that original crew of musicians. If you even notice, he ain't win another Grammy except that first one, which is
Just that
enough.
first one.
Which is enough. But all the musicians on there were African American. All of the singers in his group were African American. All the dancers. He was the only person from Africa there. But he knew the language. So the Gundun Godo Pata methodology came from them. He learned how to drum from them guys, right? But it's also something that he grew up listening to. And also, please understand that, like, when I say the best of the best, right? Like the imagine like a band where everybody's like Prince. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody's like Michael Jackson on their instrument.
Right.
You know
You
what I
know,
mean? Like everybody's like Herbie Hancock. You know, everybody's like Dennis Chambers. Everybody, the entire group, like it was so. That's what made
everybody
it.
was Miles.
Right.
Everybody's like Miles, right? You know what I mean? And what spurred from that group? You know what I mean? The people that came from that, right? These are the people that taught all of the people that taught us here. On
Atiba, that album sparked out the album for Art Blakey and the Afro Messengers.
Afro, yes,
That's true.
yes,
Wow.
yeah.
That
So
album
yeah,
Wow.
and
yeah.
those same guys
Hey,
that you're
I mean,
naming.
so for example, like if you all love Santana, that song Jingo, that's a
Jingle
cover
bell.
of the Olatunji record.
A
Jingo
Tunji
is a
song.
cover.
Yep.
The original song is on that first Drums of Passion album. Jingle ba, jingle ba,
Yep.
jingle ba, go ba, go
Yep.
ba. It's on there. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Um, and so Olatunji as a drummer is kind of a thing where he wasn't a drummer, and all the drummers know he knew. You know what I
Right.
mean? He got good at it because he did it for so long, and he was always around the best. Like I never saw a time where he didn't hire top quality musicians to play in his ensemble. He always had really good musicians playing with him, especially on hand drums.
Can I ask you a follow-up question about
Yes,
that, Atiba?
yes.
Because this relates to what we brought up earlier, and we don't have a lot of time to talk about this. We could do a whole nother day on appropriation, historical context. How do we respect the instrument? How do we respect the music and not commodify it? Because look, I'm guilty too. I'll raise my hand. I'll be the first one to say that I've commodified a lot of this stuff. But I try to do my best to set the record straight. So one of the things, this is tangential to what we're talking about, but it's something that's out there, and I just want our guests to hear from you guys, because this is a wonderful opportunity, and thank you again for being here. But I see, and what concerns me about Baba in particular is that lately I've been seeing some stuff, maybe you have too, like people doing workshops and things, is that I feel like Baba kind of became like a mascot for drum circle movement in some way. Like, and it doesn't sit well with me. So a lot of people might say he inspired them to do something, which is cool, But I just want to be clear to people too, man. My recollection, I saw Bob a few times live, and he was a very gracious man, super smart, amazing. A lot of respect.
I'll give
But
you that.
I just feel weird that people are saying like he was not a drum circle facilitator either.
Well,
So I just want to say that.
He didn't use the terminology drum circle facilitator, right?
Never.
But people brought him into spaces to do that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
They
saying?
brought
People
him in to kind of teach a little.
definitely thought that they were bringing him into spaces to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And some people
So
are really apt to exploit, especially this idea of like using somebody of particular notoriety to qualify their process. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
Yep.
it's real problematic because having the djembe world it is the stalwart of that shit. Like you just find somebody,
Yep.
and you bring them in to qualify your process. Now, the issue I find with it sometimes is that most of the people who are coming to the space or the people who are bringing that individual to the space are everybody has their intentions. Sometimes they're people you might not have the ear to adjudicate what's happening, and there's just an amount of trust. Like if you're walking to something that you don't understand or you're learning for the first time, there's a certain trust that you have that the person facilitating that is giving you something of value, right?
Yep.
But unfortunately, and this is, I mean, it's not controversial to me. It's because I see a lot of people genuinely approaching the desire to learn and study, right? But there's clearly been a space created for acceptable mediocrity in the approach, that ends up bastardizing the cultural aspects of what's happening, right? But what happens is when you bring a Baba Olatunji into a space like that, whether he and people also not understanding the nuances of African culture, he's kind of constrained to be able to deal with that situation, in graciousness, right? But it's ends up being this thing where like people, they feel like they have carte blanche to just do whatever. And I always look at it like this, right? And this, analogy that, just in my own circle, like everybody in their town has the mini mall where you can go take karate, your Kim's karate, right? You're gonna get colorful belts, you're gonna get things, you're gonna get break boards, you can do all this, right? Because karate is big, especially in the '80s, and everybody wants to do that,
Karate.
right? Mind you, karate is not kung fu, but there's a Shaolin temple of stuff, and there's the Kim's karate in your neighborhood.
Right.
The only issue that tends to happen is that there's a false equivalence given to these spaces because people don't understand that there's different things happening. Like, I am completely in favor of the casual practitioner if they understand the cause and effect. The djembe has causality, in djembe is real because you're dealing with energy and you're dealing with spirit and you're dealing with, it's like the sensationalism can't be the only reason that you walk in blind, like, what I'm saying, because there are repercussions, right? But what happens is when you go to people who understand, and are practitioners at a different level where you can develop those relationships and they give you the information that you can better utilize it in your life. Now, what happens is if you don't know how to use something properly, subsequently you end up abusing it, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, medicine people create to heal is readily abused inside of our American culture every day.
Pharmaceutical industry.
Right. The entire. But
look what happened to yoga, as an example.
Yoga.
My biggest
Exactly.
You just hit the nail on the head, man.
Lululemon stretch pants.
Okay.
And go and be doing
Okay. Well, I'm gonna say it. Ain't nobody want to say it. It's happening for djembe. We don't want to say it.
It's happening for djembe.
It's happening for
it
djembe.
It is happening. And I totally, I think that it's a valid point to bring up Olatunji in the sense of the healing or the idea that he was traveling with was to spread love and heal people and make people feel better.
Yeah.
Right? That was the whole idea behind it, right?
And also, Atiba, add on, who is he touring with at the time?
Grateful Dead. That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah,
that's
I was thinking
the larger
that,
part of it,
right?
Than Olatunji, right? And I say this why? Because those things did not start happening until the Grateful Dead tour started going on.
You hooked up with
Olatunji had already won a Grammy. Nobody asked him to come anywhere in the 60s and in the 70s to say, bring your drum and we're going to get in a circle and make us feel good and play funk.
Was he at Woodstock?
No.
He wasn't even at Woodstock.
No.
Okay.
Now, check off of that.
That didn't happen until the
But Santana played his song.
That's
right.
Yeah.
It's that age-old thing of like, traditionally, the shaman took the ayahuasca, saw the village, the vision, and then communicated the vision to whoever he was working with. And then somebody got the bright idea, like, shoot, why don't I take the ayahuasca, right? So now they end up just having whatever kind of psychotic episode. Or, I mean, some people good, some people it's bad. But a lot of times it's really like the idea that you can usurp something that's so process-oriented. Is being a musician, not even just, let alone being a djembe fola, right? You know what I'm saying? There's no microwave, way to get to it. Like, yes, it's good to have the resources. We all literally benefit from the fact that in this day and age, there are different resources that allow people to grow in their process, but it's still a process. And when you skip those steps and you want to be the shaman and you go ahead and take the ayahuasca and then you get up and assume that you're in the same, like Baba of mine used to say, people can be in the same space but not in the same place. You know what I mean?
That's good.
So
it's the commodification too. Let's be real. And like I said, I'm guilty as anybody of commodifying things without really knowing. I mean,
we are everybody on all of us on this call, right? I make a living off of music. You know what I'm saying? I have a band that plays traditional West African instruments. You know what I mean?
There it is. Unplugged, baby.
Well, I mean,
we need to get into the selfless
promotion.
Yes.
All of us do, right? And so here's the other part about it that I think is really important to understand. When you come to it from a commodification perspective, it is important to understand, I think, where this thing came from and how it got commodified so that you can do that respectfully. Because there is a way to do so, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about an instrument at first where you weren't a full-time, there was no full-time djembe player until the national companies were created. They went and got people. If you ask Famadou Konate, hey man, Famadou, you a djembe follower? He's like, nah, I'm a farmer, G. I farm. My dad's really good at farming. And I got 52 brothers and sisters. But my dad is a farmer. I'm a farmer.
Good at another thing, apparently.
Right. You asked Laji Kamara the same thing.
Yep.
He would say that. I'm a farmer. And there were songs made about him farming. Laji, Laji. Like, you know what I'm saying? That like, so the idea of that this thing, right, is completely new as a way to make revenue. Right? We are actually in the infantile stages of this as a commodity. Now, the important part, I think, is that inside of the commodification piece, when you remove the other C word, culture, and only move in the on the commodity side of it and take the culture away from it, then
The data.
Then you get yoga. Then you, you know, I mean, not yoga.
That's the problem.
Right. Then you you get your 250-hour yoga certification.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
And like what Amadou said, it's the rhythm collectors, you know. We've become rhythm collectors, purchasers of data.
Because the number one aspect about this instrument, when you understand it and its job, right? Like I'm not ever surprised at people that go to drum circles and walk away and go, oh my God, that was just so amazing. I've seen it. I know what the drum do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I know. But at the same time, right? You don't have the same expectation with anything else that heals you. You know what I mean? You don't have the same, like when the doctor gives you medication, right? When you go to the doctor and they give you medication for whatever it is, what happens when you don't follow the rules of taking the medicine? It doesn't work.
You don't drink a fifth of Hennessy and then just throw the whole capsule in your mouth, like all of that, like like you know, it's causality. There's cause and effect, and with djembe it's the same. Like when you walk into these spaces, and there's confusion, like you know, and I don't say confusion to downplay anything, but it's the djembe is a tool, and the tool is designed to work. The efficacy of this medicine is real. So, I mean, just like he was saying, with the doctor knowing how to use it, it's like any tool. Like this, my MacBook would be a really great doorstop. It can hold it, right? But I want to learn how to use this MacBook so I can do so much more. And that's the expectation I think we all have for the people out there who are learning about this incredible instrument.
That's
like
really good.
it can do so much more. You know what I'm saying?
It would be a win-win too. They would love it. They would totally love it if they just went deeper.
Okay, no, man. Let's keep it real. We in the world where tomorrow, if I want to be, you know what? The hell with all this. Tomorrow, I'm about to start playing violin, and I dare anybody tell me. And I actually could really do it if I really want to. But I'm going to just pick a violin and just start just going for blood.
Feeling the vibe.
I can do that.
No, you know what's crazy? Here's what's interesting, Weedie. You could do that. You know who does that? Yoko Ono.
Oh my
What you
God!
say that about Yoko Ono, my presence?
You did that, man. Shit.
And guess what? She's a legend.
Legendary. Now, I'm not knocking Yoko for her art, right? Because I get it. It's artistic. But at the same time, I feel that you can't go far until you know how to be near.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Look out.
I'm gonna write that down right now. Where can I
John Cage can only create music that consists of silence and page turns because he understood what music worked like in the first place.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
And he understood the science of what it represents. Good example, colors.
Cool. Wait, see you going now, Weedie.
Yeah,
Cut it off. Stop it.
But
Now, hey,
I'm just telling y'all. Kalani, I want to say thank you for what you said there. I ain't never heard nobody say no stuff like that and be honest about it. You the first to do that.
Facts. Big facts. Big facts.
That's you. Let me tell you something. In life, when you're honest and if you have submitted yourself to the instrument and to the whole spectrum of the thing, and you say, "Well, look, man, I blah 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 blah," I respect that more than somebody
Man, you
says,
gotta
"Yeah,
be enlightened to play with Yanni, brother. You have to be enlightened to play with him.
yo."
You got to
Thank you.
understand that music. You got to be an enlightened cat.
Well, thank you, Weedie. I'm just trying to do better. I mean, I was talking to Taylor last night, you know, and we were saying, you know what? We're just trying to do better than we did last week. You know, I'm just trying to learn and do better.
Hey, Bo.
Wake up. You know, I'm trying to just.
Now,
So,
hey,
there's a lot
Kalani,
to do.
Do we have to stop now, or can we go 5 more minutes?
We don't have to, but I feel like because it's on the schedule. I mean, I'm fine with whatever, but I would like to, take a minute. I have two goals.
I've got some questions that are actually things I wanted to kind of touch on. Questions from.
So just in general, before you get to those.
Yeah.
I want to make sure we get, like, for the people joining us today from you gentlemen, you know, what would you recommend as a next step for everybody listening? Like, what do they do, right? How do they improve themselves? What homework would you give them? You know, a couple things to do. That's one thing. And then the other thing is, you know, how to connect with you guys. So feel free to.
I put a few things in the chat. I just Googled you all individually and just put a few things in the chat. But yeah.
So I'll go first. Let's go the opposite way we went last time. We go young, old. So I'm the baby. You can find me on Facebook, Atiba Rorie. You can find my band on Facebook, Africa Unplugged Music. Be on the lookout. We got some music, a new song coming out later this summer. That was the first question, and the other part is, nothing matters if you're a bad person. All of the other shit doesn't even matter if you're a bad person. So I encourage each one of everybody, you know what I mean? Even myself, I have to check myself on it consistently. If you move with love and an open heart, and your goal is to try to be a good person, if you be a good person, the rest of it somewhat takes care of itself. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean that you don't have to work hard. It doesn't mean that you don't have to, you know, do all these other things, which are included in being a good person, right? Like, most of morality is not something that, you know, I feel like needs to be much debated. We kind of know generally the rights and wrongs. We just don't understand how far steeped in things we are until we actually take a look at it and say, am I being a good person in this situation? So if you're a good person, I feel like everything else will take care of itself. Like, the people that you listen to that play djembe well, that sound good on djembe, I guarantee you they're not assholes. They may even appear to be, but they're not. That drum won't allow you to do that for so long.
It'll break you.
It'll break you.
It'll yeah. Bad. I finished.
All right, Amadou.
First of all, please check me out on social media. Please tune into Sunday Choir Meditation. I host it. If you look up Sunday Choir Meditation on Facebook, you can join the group there. And there's another group that I really encourage everybody on this to join, called the Djembe Junkies. If you check out Djembe Junkies, we do a whole lot of really wonderful things, interviews, you know, clips, podcasts, you know, everything for people who love djembe. So that's spelled djembe, and then junkies is spelled DJUNKIES. So djembe junkies. My encouragement to all of you is to enter all spaces with your cup empty. You know, you'll be surprised that you can learn more with your cup empty from anyone, right? Some of the most profound teachers that I've ever had may not have always been the most excitable djembe players, you know, in the world. You know, I've been lucky enough to be around some very good ones, but I will say that the things that you learn when you're able to correlate them to your own lives, and it's about part of your personal enrichment. You know that when you come to that drum, you become a magnifier of whatever intention you're moving with. you know. So this
Mm-hmm.
idea of being accountable for your intentions and your energy in the space is really important. So when you go into a space with love, you go into a space with humility, you'll be surprised. The lessons are everywhere. So just
Mm.
make sure to do that.
Ashe, brother.
You know, so that's all. Just check out Djembe Junkies. Uh, check out
Amadou
Port.
got music for download too.
Oh yeah. So the meditation album with just choral music is coming out in August. The proper Skanks my band album is coming out a little bit later. But
Proper skanks.
it's the name of my band.
You're crazy, man.
It's great, man.
All right, Weedie, you're up.
All right. Well, I'm gonna go the other way. There's a proverb that I think needs to be said about studying and about what Pearson can do. And my view is two things. The proverb is an Akan proverb, which says in Akan, "Akudabunwe uchumachichidi," which means the child breaks the shell of the snail, but never of a tortoise. Why does that mean that? And why did I say that for everybody? We must do things in our capacity and study the ways, the things we can do in the forms and the timing of doing it to allow ourselves to grow and be the tortoise and have the longevity we need to have for the future. We cannot just jump and be a tortoise and not understand the body of a shell of a snail because you will crack. You will. That's life. But slowly, we build ourselves to be where we need to be, both musically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally. We don't have to force ourselves not to be a good person. That's natural. We don't have to force ourselves not to speak goodwill towards anybody. We have to force ourselves not to wish the best for your neighbor. We have to force ourselves to insult people because that doesn't have to, that's something negative. That has nothing to do with who we are. And it has nothing to do with what the drum entails. But I will say, if you want to allow yourself to be free, both emotionally and musically, mentally, and physically, I think the best way to go is to find a way to look at your instrument as the mirror of who you are. You look at the instrument, yeah, and you look at the instrument, you look at yourself. And I say that because these two gentlemen that I know for a fact don't think the instrument is not they don't think the instrument that it's not a part of them. It is them. It's that mirror that they're looking at, and they're looking at that to see to better themselves every second of the day. Because I tell you what, if you took that mirror from them or from us, we'll see, but we'll see more how to heal and how to heal to make ourselves better by looking to that mirror and said, okay, like the old Michael Jackson said, man in the mirror, I'm looking at that and I'm like, okay, well, who am I? What am I? But what if now it's not a mirror, it's a thing. But this thing is looking dead at me and it's resembling who I am. And it's showing me every day how to change. So for everybody, I want you to look at your instrument as that mirror. With that mirror, also with that being said, music. We could talk rhythms all day, but if you really want to understand what you are, music. There's a reason why music changes people. There's a reason why people love djembe music. There's a reason why people love djembe music and how it translates in around the world. But also, the music in your backyard can translate what the music that you're loving now is. So you like jazz and you understand it, or if you don't know what the hell it's saying, listen to it. Go where Monk is going. Go where Train is going. Go where Train is going. Go where Alice is going. Then you'll see where Mamadi Keita went. You'll see where Famadou went. Then you'll see where Doodle and Gyros went. Because essentially, those people watch those people, whether they never knew each other or not. So for me, it's actually backwards. Yeah, we can listen to all the classes. That's great. And I suggest everyone does that. But the good heart opens up the door to the mirror that you see, which is your drum, which can change your interpretation of who you are and what you are, if that makes sense. But
Nice.
Yeah.
but I ain't trying to get all like that. But since I was the last one, I had to talk my real
Yeah,
truth.
Weedie,
But
that was deep, Charlie.
That was perfect.
That was deep.
but
Right.
but but yeah, I mean, I not to be a but yeah, I mean, Weedie Braimah, I mean, I got all the holds,
On everything.
I got all the
Yeah,
holds.
that discussions in percussion that you did, I put a link to that in there. And if any of you don't know discussions in percussion, the podcast, begin to know it. Check Weedie out there. Check it out in general. I know Monette did a thing on there not too long ago. There's a bunch of whoever's on there, man, is going to be good. Whew,
Yeah,
man.
it's cool. It's cool, but it's a couple of things, I mean, a lot of cool albums coming out, whether it's with other people or, I'm trying to work on something personal that's hopefully, God willing, it
Yo,
comes out and people can see it.
dangerously modest, guys.
Right. We're not gonna let you do that, bro. We ain't gonna let you do that.
No,
We ain't gonna,
no.
no, right. No.
He's a
We-
songbird of a generation. This album is going to cure world
Right.
hunger and world peace.
Right.
But once
His
again,
music
we
is
all.
gonna make Horace join the church.
Right.
I hope that happens. But yeah, man, I mean, all these, if you Google some of the stuff, whether it's on iTunes, Spotify, all the streaming holds, and the website, the bios, and all that, and then Weedie Braimah, Facebook, Instagram, different artists, But yeah,
Hey, yo, just put y'all. I don't know if you can, but maybe put your Instagram tag or something in the chat so it's there.
yeah, the discography is cool too for everybody. I will say that. But yeah, everybody on here is working on some new music, and I think the main thing is for us to try to find a way to show that the djembe is no longer the first one hired, or the first one hired, and the last one, or last one hired, first one fired. Those days are done. You know what I'm saying? I'm happy. It's happening. It's only a handful of people doing it.
Like,
Yes.
there are some people out here, and you looking at them, and I'm looking at two of them right here. They got some fire for your ass. I don't even know how. I wish I could say it in a more eloquent way. Like, literally, it's evolving right here, right now. Like, there are people who have found that way of bringing these elements together in the most profound ways possible, and it's like, be a part of that change, y'all. Like, we don't have to be constrained to the parts of it that bastardize all of this. Like, we can be a part of something great. Like, every single person on the Zoom call, like, just by moving with your heart first, you can be a part of something great. So just really think about that, because it's happening. You don't want to be the mofo on the, like, dag. I really wish I would have walked with my heart open on that. Like,
Well, I'll tell you like this, y'all. Don't nobody want to say it, but Kalani, the next time we come on here, you got to bring a guest. I have to meet Yanni. I mean this with all my life, all my heart. I'm sorry, no one wants to say it.
No, you're right. We've been talking about the fact
Right.
that
Hold on one second.
No way.
I know you
For
right.
what? He's got him right there. No, don't even say that.
No.
Do not
Don't
even
do that.
say. He's got like a cardboard cutout or some shit.
Hey, Weedie, it's nice to meet you.
Hey!
No.
It's really great to be here today. Yeah, everybody. Hello. Love my music.
That's
There he goes.
Oh my God.
I just
Crazy.
found this. I was looking through. I was doing some box cleaning and stuff. I found a program from 1993.
You walked in the other room and got Yanni. Man. Look,
And he got
if you'd have walked in the other room and got Yanni,
Let me tell you something, man. The live at the Acropolis,
Jesus
I would have the
Christ.
FBI looking for me if that was the case. I think I would be
I'm
under
telling you, man,
arrest.
musically, I'm telling you the way the idea, I mean, as far as the look, I was like,
Live at the Acropolis.
Live at the
live at the
Acropolis.
Acropolis, baby. Don't
What?
joke.
Yep.
Yeah,
That was
thank
amazing,
you.
bro.
Yeah.
That would
You know
tell you,
that
but so
album and this album are like my two favorite albums.
oh wow.
I'm just
Mr.
kidding,
Rogers.
but check that out.
Oh, that's Mr. Rogers?
Wow.
That's Mr.
Yeah,
Rogers.
bro. He
That's
was a
some vinyl
bad
right
jazz
there.
cat.
Oh, wow.
That's
Let's
the
be
real.
together
Wow.
today.
That's,
Oh
That's the
wow.
theme.
There's so much stuff going through my mind right now.
Hey, Weedie, my mom said she's afraid.
Yeah. Oh my God. You've been
Right, ooh
very
la
bad.
la.
You've been very bad.
oh, man.
I bet Taylor, you had some other questions.
Well, I don't know if we can get to anything else. I do, but I think we need to end it today. Is that right,
Oh, well.
Kalani?
We can go a little more, but I think we should come back and do another one.
I
Whenever.
agree.
There's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot we can talk about, and I would love to. I would actually really appreciate it if we could figure out some tactics and strategies. Like you guys touched on it. We talked about a little bit of like the issue of appropriation or commodification. And look, I'm not hating on anybody. I'm saying I want to do better. That's all I'm saying. I want to do better, and I want to help other people do better who don't know, because people don't know. They don't know. We've all made those mistakes, and I just want to help people not do that so much. It's not about, it's not about hating on other people. It's about like, what can I do, be more aware, and do a better job. That's all.
Desegregate the drum and desegregate the drum and the mentality of what it is. That's how you do it. And there we at. And that's the key. That's the key,
The whole thing.
And how to help people, like, for example, a topic maybe for next time. Because I've thought about this, is like there's a lot of people out there with websites and programs and products, and we all know that, and we all do it. We all do so. But there's some stuff, man, that bugs me as a percussionist. Like, and again, this is not about any individuals, but I just feel like I was talking to Taylor last night, I would never put on a white coat and wear a stethoscope around my neck and just be walking around like, hey, what's up? So there's a lot of people that do that with a drum.
Yep.
And sometimes I'm like, I've never heard you play the drum ever. Like, but you got a drum now and you're doing some teaching. And it's not that I'm trying to stop people from doing things. I just want to say buyer beware. Like, how does a consumer find quality teachers or resources?
The issue
Look at their lineage.
Because of commodification, and we're dealing in a world where, like, the money makes it right. Like, so people tend to look and see who is sold the most of whatever their product is, or who has the most of views and fan base, those type of things, and it ends up being this thing where like we use that to adjudicate a person's mastery in the subject, which is kind of like it's hit or miss, right? I think that there's always going to be the peripheral, and then there's always going to be moving towards the inner process. And I'm not saying it's futile, because there are going to be people who are completely satisfied with the peripheral knowledge of stuff, and then there are going to be people as they begin to explore their own process that they're going to search for something deeper, or more fulfilling, even, because they don't have to even be deep. It's just, and I think that the best thing we can do is we can prepare, like by being consistent in our own process, so that if people are entrusting us with the responsibility of helping them, or helping guide them through that next evolution of their own, that we can do so in with integrity and just thoroughly. Because I think that if we had to really be honest with how the commodification of the djembe world does not reflect most of the narrative of how it got here, let alone the business of it, it really got to be another conversation because there's definitely cats out there making millions off of snake oil. Like,
yeah, a lot of
True.
snake oil.
McDonald's. Shit. Come on.
So,
and yeah.
Primo.
Well,
Oh, you didn't. We're gonna just edit that out.
I don't
we
edit
don't want
out. It's
any,
all good.
we don't want any
Mind you,
endorsements
okay,
pulling
okay,
out.
hold on. Hey, I'm
Go look
endorsed
at their
with all-
website and look at his picture on there.
I almost put a link up there.
he's got the boat.
but that's the thing. Like we just have to fortify in our own process, maybe become more, efficient at that. But like, if we had to be honest with just how out of hand, think about it. The djembe has become arguably the most popular hand drum on the entire planet. It starts from this one little dot, in the middle of West. And the people who are benefiting from the exploitation of that, it's gotten so far out of hand. Like, so far out of hand. I don't think I don't think the disruption of that comes from being reactionary to that part of the process. You have millions of players, and I can guarantee you 95, 98% of people who play djembe have no idea where it's from, what it does, or how to use it, right? But as we're consistent in our own gradual process of informing and educating and sharing and moving with a good heart, like, it might not be 95% next year. It might be 90. We could just really go crazy with it. Like somebody who drops one of these incredible albums is about coming out and people really look into it and it's 50-50. But at the end of the day, because of the contract you make with the energy of the djembe, you can't move in a reactionary or negative way. You have to move from a place of clarity. They say if your heart isn't clear, your hands aren't clear. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's almost, we're constrained in one respect to abide by the edicts of this instrument, which means that you got to be accountable. Like, sometimes you want to pull your hair out and be like, man, that's some bullshit. Like, but at the end of the day, you just have to prepare and fortify in your own path. And we can always network and connect and really, meet amongst one another so that we can reinforce the fact that that process is valuable. That's what djembe junkies is. Like, it's not a reactionary thing. It's so that people who actually love the instrument, can find a safe space to explore their process. You know what I mean? So I
Can
think.
you tell us, Amadou, how you created it?
What? Okay.
No. Wait. Before we go, before Amadou tell that story,
Right.
Weedie, you have to tell us the Mamadi in the airport.
Yeah, and the airport story, bro. And don't leave no shit out.
Right, don't leave nothing out because we sitting here.
All right, so 1996, St. Louis. I just went to the 9th grade, right? And a guy from St. Louis, a good friend of mine, I have to say he was a part of my. I have to say this guy definitely was a very influential person to being able to link this connection to even Amadou, me and Amadou linking. I gotta say it's Adam Rugo. Who hadn't it been for Adam Rugo bringing Mamadi cases to St. Louis, I probably wouldn't be linked up to all these people now. So shout out to Adam Rugo. To this day, I will definitely say that. I will not. That's a good friend of mine. He's been a close friend of my family. Must say that. Adam me tight to this day. We didn't fall and curse each other up, but it's my man. Okay. So I was at a gig. Real quick story. I was at a gig and I was doing a gig at the art museum. And this guy, white cat has his little djembe on his back. He said, hey man, I'm bringing this guy in town. He passed me a flyer. I said, you bringing a drummer? And my eyes went from this to, this is not right. Are you mommy? And I got scared. I dropped it. He says, yeah, he's coming. Now, everybody say, oh, you going to the class. Don't worry. I'm like, man, my mama, she going, okay. All right. I got to get this much money. I got to get like $100 for the whole week. And I'm like, oh, it's $100. I ain't got no gigs. Okay. And everybody's like, don't worry, you going to go. So I said, well, my mama said, if you really want to make a lasting impression of somebody that you're gonna end up playing with one day, because she was like, she said, you would not only meet this man, you will play with him. I say, whatever. She said, take your djembe and go to the airport. I say, huh? So take your djembe and go to the airport. I say, and play for my hero. Yeah. I said, well, hell, you think I can do it? What time he get in town? Adam said he flies in at 5:45. Now, this is when you can walk to the plane, go in from the back of and go up the rails and be at the gate. So I go up, my friend Ray Barrows, he drives his little truck. He has his wife made some food. January sister, Blanche, made some food. All right. Ray, drive the car. We go up there. Ray, I'm gonna take the car. Ray runs behind me. I got drum hat and whole fatigue on, drum fatigue, and I run to the gate. No mama did. And I'm like, damn, I missed it. Out of nowhere, about like 300 feet, I hear ching, 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 ching. I'm like, and I look and I see this man, short man. I'm like, gray hair, he had a gray line. And I see Adam. I think it was Wolfie, another black dude, and this short man, Ching. And I'm getting closer, and he's smiling. I'm smiling at him. I said, and he sit there, he stopped. He said, like, not with a shocking, smiling, and almost a disgust. This crazy motherfucker came to an airport and played for me. It was like, he got to get down. And then I got done. He did his bobber thing. I was like, and I'm in shock. And then Wolf and Adam was like, Mamadi, this is Weedie. Weedie. I'm Mamadi Keita. And my name Diallo. And I say, he says, so the whole weekend, that first day, he saw me and he's like, okay, now we go eat. You coming? He said, you coming? I said, I'm coming. So we went to the house and I'm at the door watching him eat. And he offered me this chocolate. He said, chocolate, you want chocolate? I said, yeah. And but this is the deep part. He was looking at my drum and he said, sa. It was basically saying, you see that? The idea of what a djembe fola is that. But one thing he has to learn, never put your strap on the floor. Because I didn't have my bag. I just was walking with my djembe at this time. I was walking with my drum. I left my duffel bag because I'm old school in the car. So I got the duffel bag in the car.
Navy bag.
All in the Navy bag. And so he looks and he said, that's not good. And I immediately wrapped up the bag. He said, but his mentality of what he has, he will go far. He said, he is going to go far. I said, to see that in America, he said, I've never seen it. So the next day he has class. He teaches dundun and manjani. I couldn't even play kakutuka because I was at awe watching my hero playing with this beautiful drum. And this dude was like, this dude is not natural. In my mind, I was like, and so he gets up, he says, oh, you right-handed like me. Kakutuka. I couldn't even do pop. And now here I am, the champion of St. Louis, and can't even play kaki because everybody's like, whoa, Weedie he's not, this is not natural. He's really making St. Louis look bad right now. This is not right.
He's starstruck.
And so I was starstruck, and he knew it. And the next day, Diallo comes to me and says, I need to talk to you, bro. Come off me. So he says, hey, now you my little brother, and I'm gonna watch out for you because I know you can play. But here's the deal. I'm gonna tell you something. He looked over, he looked to the right, looked to the left. Mama, he likes you. I say, what? Yeah, he was talking about you for like a good hour last night. I say, what? He said, yeah, you're gonna be my brother too, Mahiri. He told Mahiri to watch out for you. I said, your brother? Oh, okay. He said, yeah, y'all link, you good. Now I called that boy Diallo every day. I called his phone every day. He was like, what's up, man? And he was cool until one day his wife answered the phone. She said, oh, he's sleeping. And says, what I say? He said, who's calling? This Weedie. Oh, nice to meet you. I'm Maisha. I said, nice to meet you. He says, yeah, My son is sleeping. He's a drummer too. By the time Kwaku was a baby,
Yeah, they were like, he had to be a couple months maybe.
man, here he didn't come because IJ was just born.
He was being born, right?
Now look at these young boys. They some of the baddest little motherfuckers of all time.
They cold, they cold.
But yeah, man, I remember. So that's my mommy. And to this day, mommy would always say, "No, Weedie, he knows his music. I remember I first met Weedie. He played for me at the airport, and I hear talking. I said, "Whoa."
You guys end up playing together.
And we end up playing. Yeah, right? Yeah, true.
You know, beyond Vancouver a couple times.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Weedie. Damn.
It's a true story, yeah. I mean, hey, it's my claim to fame.
Right. Right. That's it. Nice. That's the only thing. Yeah. Right.
Imagery of you in full regalia with a drum hat and everything in the airport is just, that's what takes
97 though.
You know, Diallo
96.
Right. Diallo told me that story. Diallo's
that's
like,
a true story, man.
Yeah, Weedie crazy. He crazy.
But what happened was, I mean, you got to realize, man, you only got one shot. I come from the entertainment world, and that's paid off. I mean, we got fans literally got fans all the world, because of the mentality that I'm not gonna settle for less what I believe in. You know what I'm saying? It's true. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you got djembe players who are working and recognized of doing something. I want to be the djembe player who's being recognized for literally changing what I said I was going to do. I want that. You know what I'm saying? Like Giovanni said, well, who's your greatest inspiration? So-and-so. And he said some stuff that messed me up to this day. My greatest inspiration is me. I'm only me.
Giovanni,
and when he said that, it made it the greatest sense. Yeah. And that's what, that's how I was able to do the things I've done thus far in my life. I'm able to meet people like Amadou. I'm able to meet Atiba. I'm able for us to work together. I'm able to do that because I believe in what I did, what God has helped me to do, and what God has helped them to do. And they believed in themselves. And that's a humbling experience. For some people, that's kind of, it's a humbling experience because God gave you the tool. If God didn't give you the tool to learn and to be free and to try it, there's no conversation that we need to be having. Shoot, my dream is still same as it is. I'm gonna meet Yanni, goddammit.
I'll see what I can do. I'll see what I can do. That's awesome.
Great,
guys,
Yanni.
I appreciate it so much. Anything else we need to cover before we wrap up? I want to let these folks go. And, I appreciate it so much, you guys. Thank you for spending time. And
we've been on here for a long time. We're, as y'all can see, we all are, we like talking to people.
Hey, I think there's somebody who wants to, somebody been trying to pick a fight with Atiba for about 45 minutes too. So you got to go deal with this.
Yeah, right. My nephew's here. Yeah, my nephew.
Hey, if any questions, there were a couple questions that were not addressed. Go to Djembe Junkies. Put them in Djembe Junkies and just tag these guys. You'll get your answer. You'll get your dialogue. No problem.
Oh,
hashtag fact.
There you go.
Uncle Baba telling you.
That's right. Got the homework. He's gonna go get him. Go get him. Well, thank you, Taylor. Also, thank you so much for hosting.
Taylor?
For being here and organizing. Hey, there he is. Who's that? What's your name?
That's my little guy.
That's my nephew. Since Uncle Baba's here, we're gonna let him talk to Uncle Baba. Weedie Braimah.
You want to say hello?
Say hi, wave.
Now he's shy.
Hey.
Well, thanks everybody for joining us.
I'm glad this whole thing could come together. Thank you, Yanni. Thank you, Weedie. Thank you, Atiba. Thank you,
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you for.
Oh my goodness.
Thank you for joining me. Who would win? It's a battle. Who would win?
Oh my goodness. A cage fight or something. Mr. Rogers and Yanni.
Yanni and Mr. Rogers in the octagon. Sunday.
Oh no.
Mr. Rogers Mr. Rogers give Yanni the business. I have to say.
I believe Mr. Rogers is crazy.
Mhm.
He'll be that calm all
Celebrate
the
for that
time.
long. That's pent up, repression.
Right.
Yeah.
Nah, nobody's that calm all the time unless you really bubbling real hard.
Like Barbara.
Yes.
Barbara is too happy.
Yeah, he be chill. Like, I'm like, who's your favorite sports team? Did they lose? What's going on? Like, something got to happen.
Mm-mm. Well, guys, God bless you all.
You too. Thank you. Blessings to everyone. Thank you for joining. Go to Djembe Junkies to continue the conversation, right?
Yes.
And let's do this again.
Yes,
Let's
please.
do it again.
Thank y'all.
All right,
I'm
now.
Besoma.
Thank y'all.
Peace.
Best on my day. Awa. Best on my day. Awa. Iba. All right. I'm gone. How do I get off?
Thank you, guys. I'm going to end it. Have a great day, everybody.
All right. Namaste.
Namaste.